Hello YouTube, we're back again with another top 10 photos that I've taken throughout the year. A very busy wedding season for me. I think I ended up doing 28 weddings in total, or being a part of 28 weddings in total. And of them, I think I had 9 were as a second photographer, which I love doing because I feel like when I'm the second photographer, I'm able to get more creative shots throughout the day because I'm not focused on getting the most important and the essential shots. So quite a few of the ones you'll see here are from second shooting, so I'll mention which photographer I was working with each time, and yeah, talk you through why I love each image. So without further ado, coffee in hand, ready to go, let's take a look. So at number 10 we have this one taken on the Samyang 24mm lens, one of probably my favorite lens actually. And this one was second shooting for Callum Riddle at Fask Castle, which was quite interesting because Fask Castle, I've seen a lot of pictures of it at this staircase, and it's always been one that I've been really keen to go and shoot at. I think it's Fask Castle, I might have got the name of it wrong, but always been really keen to shoot there. And when Callum got in contact with me, it was a bit of a bad timing one because I had a wedding on the Friday for video, which is always a lot more tiring than photos or second shooting, and I really couldn't be bothered working on the Saturday as well. But I think Callum was quite stretched. I think he'd had someone get ill and couldn't make it. So I went along. A good time as always with Callum, and the reason this is only at number 10 is he told me where to go for this and said try and get some shots from up here, and it was the obvious shot to get. But what I quite like about this one is it tells a bit of a story, or you get what's happening here from the image. It's that last sort of moments as she's away to walk down the aisle with her dad. I like the symmetry, the leading lines of the staircase. I even like the wee flower petals that are sitting on the last few stairs there. I like that I've got the light in at the top. Something I could be quite bad for is cutting off little things like that, in which case I'd probably have cropped it more to take out the light completely. And the only thing I probably don't like about this is the sort of table and the stool at the bottom, but the table had been set up for the wedding, so that's not something we would have moved type thing. The reason it's only at number 10 though is it's not a particularly challenging shot. It wasn't something I had to think too much about, and it kind of just happened. At number 9 is one of mine from Siobhan and Graham's wedding at Netherdale House, which this is actually a really good example of why I probably prefer second shooting for when I'm trying to get creative shots or shots that are not the bog standard ones, because I had hundreds of photos to choose from this wedding. It was my own wedding. I was doing photo and video, and I had Ria with me, who was absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Ria. And we got a fantastic gallery put together. But when I was looking through these to try and pick one out for this top 10, I couldn't find many that I thought, there's something quite creative with that, or there's something I could talk about here that is quite interesting. And because I was getting a lot of the sort of normal, expected, safe shots rather than putting in time to get anything particularly creative. But this one from the morning with Siobhan was pure luck. I was wandering through the corridor behind them, and all the girls and her mum, I think this is her mum here, sort of stopped and looked into Siobhan at this point, and I just happened to be passing at that moment. They all looked in, and I love the framing here because we've almost got like a double effect. We've got Siobhan framed by her bridesmaids and her mum, but we've also got the door frame in there that's adding a bit of extra framing, leading your eye towards Siobhan. Lighting's fine as well. It was a glorious sunny day on this one, so some challenges with the light outside, but really like the way this one's came together. And the only reason it's not higher up is probably because it's just a morning picture, so it's not like a spectacular payoff of the day type photo, and there wasn't a lot of skill involved in it. It was a case of, oh, I'm here, take the photo, boom, it's happened. So it was a little bit of luck there. It was on the Sony 35mm GM, the 1.4, which helps create that extra separation between the foreground and Siobhan in the background, which helps draw your eye in as well. So that was number 9. At number 8, we've got this one here. These two wee cuties from my most recent wedding, my last one of the year at Logie Country House. And there's a few reasons why this one's in here, because you might be looking at this thinking, well, that's not that difficult to get. You've just snapped them as they're walking down the aisle, which is true to an extent. The framing's not the best here. I couldn't go bang on central because the officiant was there, and I was trying to also bear in mind try and get a reaction shot of the groom. So I was off to the side ever so slightly. But the reason I've put this in is because it was so dark at this time of year that I had to use flash, which I like using flash because you can control the light much better there. But I'm not a huge fan of using flash in ceremonies because it could be a little bit obtrusive and a flash going off every so often. So would I then subconsciously be a little bit more reserved in terms of firing off photo after photo after photo? So you get less chance to spray and pray. And with kids, quite often they'll be looking anywhere else but forward or up. But these two are both looking over at, I'm assuming, one of their parents or somebody, but they're both looking in the same direction. They've got their hands held. It's a nice sort of body position as well. It's not an awkward sort of halfway through bringing their foot back or whatever. And yeah, just I like her wee cheeky tongue out as well, is quite funny. And I love the colours here. Again, we've been working on my colours and editing, and really like the way that this has came together. Again, taking on the 50 1.4 GM. It's cropped a little bit from the full-size version, just to get a little bit closer to them. But yeah, that's my number 8. Okay, number 7, we have this one here, which was taken at Chivas Steading, and it was one of the times I was there second shooting for Christy Johnston. This wedding was this my first time there? No, I think this was my second time at Chivas, so I knew what to expect, and Christy was great in terms of telling me this is quite a hard venue to do as a second shooter, because I would be up the back and it's got this big, huge window at the front, which makes everything really heavily backlit for the second photographer up the back. And so she said to me, look, I don't expect you to get too much, but see what you can do. And this is one of 2 in the top 10 from this ceremony. And this one's more about telling a story. So the girl in the foreground here who's holding up the phone, she actually works at Chivas, and the grandfather, I think it's Maria's grandfather, bride's grandfather there, was unfortunately too ill to make the wedding, and so they had him on FaceTime to be able to see it. And it just so happened that I think Jordan's, the girl's name, was up the back filming from there, and I saw this opportunity to get this shot that kind of tells the story of him watching the ceremony, and then you can obviously still see the couple in the background. But a little bit more than that is that I've shot this at f4.5 to make sure you can see enough of the background to be able to get what's happening there, because at 1.4, it's on the 50mm, at 1.4 that background would have just been blown to smithereens at that close a distance to the focus point. So a little bit of camera knowledge coming in there in terms of picking the right aperture for telling enough of the story that you're looking to tell. And then at number 6 we have this one, which again is from the most recent wedding, my last wedding of the year at Logie Country House. Again on the 50mm at 1.4, shot at 1.4. And this one, you might be looking at this thinking, well, there's nothing special about this. And to an extent, I would agree. But the reason this is quite high up is you've got a couple of compositional elements in here. So I really like the framing, with it, using the couple to frame their guest who's giving a reading here. I like that I've still got the sign of the couple's new surname in the background there. I like that you've got the fairy lights and the texture filling up the background, makes it quite clean. But the thing I like most about this, and the reason it's quite high, is again, I was using flash here, so I don't want to be firing off flash after flash after flash, so I had to be quite selective with how many photos I took. And photographers who are more experienced than me will know this more than I would as a videographer. It's when someone's giving a reading or a speech on video, nothing to worry about because you're recording the whole thing. But with photos, if someone is mid-sentence or mid-speech, you can get some strange looking faces whenever you take a photo. So if you are using flash and you're trying to be selective about how often you take photos, it can be quite limited as to how many you get to pick from that might be usable. And here we've got a really nice expression on, I think her name's Julia, who was giving the reading here. So it's not like her mouth's half open from being mid-sentence. She's looking at Dan, giving her message, and I think it's just a really lovely image. And given I had to be quite precise with when I was taking photos, I'm really happy with this, and that's why it's in at number 6. At number 5, we have my first shot on this list with a new lens I got this year, which was the Samyang 85mm f1.4 Mark II. It was a lens I'd toyed with buying previously, and I'd always put it off because I didn't use 85mm too much on my own. I tend to be 24-50 or 35-50, but as I was doing more and more second shooting, I found I would be using 85 a lot more, and I decided, okay, I'll pick it up. Not that the Sony A7 1.8 wasn't good. It was a great lens, great value. I didn't like the background too much on it. I always felt it was a little bit digitally, whereas this lens, and this is only at f2, but I love the background rendering on this and the out of focus areas. We've got another one coming up, I think next, that is all about the background as well. But a couple of things I really love about this image is this is a good example of why I love being the second photographer. Christy was shooting from left of scene here, and I just wandered around the other side to just see if I could see anything. And from here, I really love that we've got multiple layers of depth here, because we've got some of those daisies in the foreground grass blurred out. You've then got Maria in focus, then it falls off. You've got two trees, and then Shiva's house in the background as well, which is in some lovely light too. So it's got multiple sort of dimensions and layers to it. But then you've also got the trees almost framing Maria as well. And I love her expression here as well. It's kind of like a model-like look that Christy set up here. So I really like Christy's posing. Sort of makes my job a lot easier when I'm trying to get some good shots. So that was number 5. At number 4, we have this one here from Katie and Ryan's pre-wedding shoot. So they're getting married in 2024. And we went out for a wee pre-wed shoot at Fingen. I think that's how you pronounce it. Which I'd never been to before. So I went out the week before to take a walk around and see if there was going to be some good spots there. And there was a really lovely, just wee walk around the local park and some of the wooded areas there, and thought, this will work. But it was no idea what the weather was going to be like on the day. And it was quite a windy day that we went there, and the sun was in and out throughout. But this was one that I'd looked at this pose from an online photo that I'd seen. I always try to go into a photo shoot with an idea of a new pose to try or one new thing to try. And I really like this because of, it is more about the lens with this one rather than the pose. It's the Samyang 85mm shot at 1.4 where that background just melts away. But I love the greens in this. I'm normally quite bad for taking green out of photos, but I love the greens here. I love the sort of swirling, defocused rendering of that background with this Samyang lens. It really puts all the emphasis onto Katie here. I love that there's really harsh light in the background, but then Katie and Ryan are more in shade. And just, yeah, the more I've looked at this image, the more I love it. I don't like, Katie, that you've got your phone in your back pocket. That's the only thing I don't like about this. I think my eye keeps getting drawn to that. But yeah, really, really love this lens. And it's making me think about a slightly different way of shooting next year, because I've now picked up an A7R5 predominantly for the crop mode and being able to get, I'll maybe do a separate video on why I've picked one of them up, but I might be more of a 24-85 shooter next year because I can use that A7R5 and do 24 and effectively about a 36 using the crop mode. So you might find more of these sorts of shots in my galleries next year. We'll see how things go. And then into the top 3. Number 3. This one's actually really interesting. So again, Logie Country House for this one. We're on the 35mm GM at f2. And this was going down the staircase at Logie. I'm up on the upper level here. Christy, second shooting for Christy again, who's down at the front door, getting the reaction of Chloe's dad here as she's walking down the stairs. And so what's really interesting about this, I love the unique sort of bird's eye view I'm getting here. I love that I've got the upper levels sort of banister in the foreground as well, that adds a little bit of depth and a little bit of context to where I'm shooting from. I love that it's quite clean in terms of there's not really any mess around or anything lying around. And I love that it tells a little bit of a story in that you've just got, I think the dad's name's Mark, you've just got Mark here turning his head to look at his daughter. A bit of a sad story here in that Mark has MS, I think, and so the wedding got brought forward. But it was one of my favourite weddings I was at this year. Chloe, what a bundle of energy she was. And it was just a fantastic day from start to finish, and got some cracking images. Really, really enjoyed this one. And Christy was really happy with this image as well. So that always means a lot if the photographer that I'm working for is happy with the shot that I got. But what else is quite interesting about this is when I was back at Logie for my last wedding of the year, because Christy was quite surprised that she was like, how did you even manage to get that? And obviously I'm leaning over the banister, but when I went back to Logie, I had another look to see, right, what could I do here? And it is a lot more of a difficult position to get into than I thought. And so it must have been like a heat in the moment time. I was just like, right, I'm following her down and I'm throwing my camera over. And I think I must have been at a point where I could barely see what my framing was, but God knows how. But yeah, managed to get it. So really, really happy with that one. And number 2, we're back to Shivis Stedding again. And this one, it was quite a funny one because this kid here was sitting playing with this candle, and I was thinking, is this kid a way to burn their hand here, fiddling about with the candle? But then all of a sudden he turned up to look at Maria and Neil here, and my framing, I'm on the Samyang 135, I think, 135mm from Samyang here, and I just managed to fit Maria and Neil in and the kid and timed it perfectly to get, and again, it goes back to that sort of storytelling of your eyes drawn to this kid looking up at Maria and Neil getting married here, and I think it's just a lovely image because I like these anonymous images where you can't make out faces, because I think they can sort of apply more to anyone. Same with number 3 actually, in that you can't see who it is. So I think there's an element of you could imagine yourself more in that situation when you can't see a face as such, but it still tells a bit of a story. And the other reason I really liked this is the challenge of that heavy backlighting, where hitting your exposure and getting it correct. I use exposure compensation here, so I'm 0.7 overexposed, and then we'll have obviously edited it a bit in post, but quite a difficult exposure to nail, but really happy with how this one came together. And then number 1, my favorite image that I took this year is this one here, which was taken while I was second shooting for Paul Maver. So thanks a lot, Paul, for having me along to this one. Kevin here on the middle of the dance floor. This wedding was so funny because everything was quite chill and laid back in the morning. We were just chilling. It was at Logie Country House again, but the ceremony was actually at a church in Dice. So we were at Logie in the morning, then we went over to Dice for the ceremony, back to Logie for the reception, and as soon as the dancing started, the place just went wild. And this photo, I think, really sums it up. There was a song, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like not a Scottish song, but it's famous in Scotland for, I think it's either a football team's song. It might be a Celtic song, but I could have got that horribly wrong. It's like a do. And that song came on. It was one of Kevin's favourite songs, and he just went absolutely mental on the dance floor. And similar to some of my university ball photos, I'm on the 24mm here, and this is why I love this lens. You can get right close in on the action, which puts all the emphasis onto your subject, but then because it's such a wide angle lens, you still get a lot of context. So we've got all of these guests around him, cheering him on. He's got his glow stick in the air, giving it large. And I wasn't sure initially, but I even love this hand that's up at the top right in the foreground, because I think that adds a little bit of depth and also says, yes, there are people all around him rather than just behind him type thing. So it's one of those that, yeah, you're married now and you're just absolutely loving life. And even looking around the image, you've got his wife in the background there, like looking gobsmacked at what she's seeing. You've got the guy jumping up behind her. You've got this girl to his left who's in the thick of it, cheering him on. You've then got his son. I think that's his son over at the very left with the long hair, and he looks a little bit lost. So you've got a little bit of everything in this photo, and yeah, just sums up probably my favorite part of the night, that when the dancing gets going. So there we go. That was my top 10 photos of 2023. Some fantastic memories and hopefully some cracking images in there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what 2024 brings. Thanks for watching.